roots and nth roots. These four examples, looking at these four anyway, the top two examples are what we would call cube roots, because you can see we have little threes on the outside of those roots. And then the bottom two examples are nth roots. I would technically, looking at the bottom left, call that a fourth root, and then the bottom right, I would call this a fifth root. On the previous video, we looked at the example square root of 16. Now, for a normal square root, they actually don't put the number here, but there's secretly a 2 hanging out on the outside there. And that is telling us to figure out what we talked about last time. What to the second power gives me 16. And we figured out that that was 4. So, the only difference between that and what we're talking about now is now this is telling me, well, what to the third power gives me 8. So, sometimes some guess and check will help here. You can do this on a calculator too. And I'll show you how to do that in class. But we're looking at what to the third power would be 8. And it just so happens that 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. So the cubed root of 8 is 2. That's what we're looking for there. Okay. Looking at the next example then, on the right, the cubed root of negative 8. Now it's possible to have a negative inside that root. You cannot have a negative inside an even root, because that will give you an imaginary number. But as long as this is an odd on the outside, it is possible for this to be negative on the inside, because this is asking us to figure out what to the third power gives me negative 8. Well, negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 does give me negative 8. So the cubed root of negative 8 is negative 2. Alright, so that's what that's asking us to look at. And then my last two examples are the same exact concept. The only difference is now, if I'm looking at the bottom left, the fourth root of 81, I'm looking for what to the fourth power gives me 81. So this particular one is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 gives me 81. Okay. And lastly, we have a fraction, and it's a fifth root. We can break this up just like we did. It applies to the whole fraction, so we can do fifth root of 1 over the fifth root of 32. Now, if you ever get 1 inside of a root, that's the best one, because that always comes out with 1, because 1 times 1 times 1, 5 times gives me 1. And then we just got to look for the fifth root of 32, which is asking us to find what to the fifth power gives me 32. And this happens to be 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 32. So